say, intelligently classified our personality into Panchakoshas. The Annamaya, the Pranamaya, the Manomaya, the Vijnanamaya, and the Anandamaya. Well, we must know all these 5 koshas in their real form and make best use of the privilege of these Panchakoshas available to us for our betterment, for our perfection. We, the human beings, are not satisfied with the facts that surround us. The facts are of the empirical world. And in this empirical world, we always feel as if we are lacking something, we are wanting something, we are missing something. Dissatisfaction, some sort of anguish. We have some philosophers who very much talked of this sort of anguish and feelings of fear, death, etc. We call them as existentialist thinkers. Well, to some extent, existential import is good, with limitations. It's a fact that our worldly existence is not something worth living. It needs to be, it calls for improvement. And the improvement is twofold. It has to be both material as well as spiritual. That's why defining dharma, Rishi Kanad says, Yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. Dharma has to contribute to material progress as well as spiritual enhancement. Both are needed. Why? Because this psychophysical apparatus is there with us. And we have to make use of it. We have to make the best possible use of it. And we can do so if and only if there is material prosperity. So we have not to deny material prosperity. Science and technology and all their innovations are useful. But we have to make their judicious employment. They are useful to the extent that they are helpful to spiritual realization. They are means, they are not end in themselves. If we take them to be the end, if we take the body and the mind to be the real self, and we have in the Upanishad a very beautiful parable, we call it as Prajapati Indra Virochana Samvada. So Virochana, who represents the evil tendencies, is satisfied by defining self as body or the senses. At the most we may have Shishta Charvaka. There are 2 types of Charvaka, Dhurta and Shishta. The Dhurta will be only say that body is the self. So, Yavat Jivesukam Jive Dhurta Kakam Vivet Bandhi Bhuzul Jasya Punragamna Buddha. But there are Shishta Charvaka who believe in say some moral values as well. But they don't go beyond that. They don't reach to the self, which is the core, which is our inner essence. And therefore, we must pay due attention. I say due attention to this body-mind complex. We must know what our body is, what are the requirements of our body, how to keep the body healthy, health and hygiene. They are the hallmarks of a civilized society. So, Arogya has to be there. Arogya is one of the Vedas in our tradition. But then we should not stick to that only. The word should not be too much with us, as Wordsworth, the poet, English poet, would say. We have to know our finitude. and transcend the finitude. We must know that we are finite in our worldly existence. We must know that we are conditioned by this body-mind complex. We must know that this conditioning is to be made best use of, and then subsequently it has to be deconditioned. Only when there is adhya, rupa, apavada, to use Vedantic terminology, the superimposition of the body-mind complex on the self, well, it has to be got rid of. And once we do that, then the self shines in its pure luminosity. As Maharishi Patanjali says, Tada Drashtuhu Swarupe Avastha. Well, this is the self-situated test. The self which has become outward looking because of this mind-body complex becomes self-aware. This is self-realization. Of course, there is self-realization. I would say that there are graded self-realizations. Body also is a self in the worldly state of existence, and we must know the body. The mind also is a self in the worldly state of existence. We must know the mind, we must know the intellect. But then, this is not the final. We have to go beyond that. We have to transcend that and go to the real. It's just like a ladder. You have to go step by step. If you try to jump from the first step to the last one, there is always a possibility of a fall, a steep fall and injury. Therefore, there has to be, we have in our tradition, therefore, a very well thought out, very well worked out theory of Purusharth. Purushasya arth, Purush who is Pure Agre Gacchati, one which moves forward, one who has to go upward, that is a Purusha. If one goes downward, that one is not a Purusha. Well, we are already at the lowest substratum of the cosmic process because sometimes we behave worse than an animal. Of course, the Western definition is that we are animal. Of course, we say that we are divine sparks. Bhagavad Gita says, Mami we are divine sparks. And Amrita Sutra, the Vedic would say. And therefore, of course, body-mind complex is there, and it distracts us, it denigrates us also at times. So, if you call that as animality, well, that definition is acceptable. But then, we are divine persons. Divinity is inherent in us. And we have to realize the divinity which is potentially present in us. We have to actualize that sort of divinity. That's why Vedic Rishi would say, Manurbhav Janaya Devyam Janam. We have to realize the Manushyata and turn it into Divyata. Because only Manushyata can be transformed into Divyata. The Pashatva cannot be transformed immediately to Divyatva. Human being is an intermediary stage. So, the theory of Purushartha is a very well conceived, well articulated mode of worldly existence. In this, we have acquisition of earth, calm, regulated by dharma, leading to moksha. Dharma is the sustaining principle. Dharana dharmitya dharmena dharite praja. Dharma is the regulating principle. Chodna Artho Lakshano Dharma, says the Rishi Shabad. Dharma is the sustaining principle, Dharma is the regulating principle, and Dharma is the ennobling principle. It ennobles life if it is properly pursued with the as help or assistance of earth and Kama. So, Yado, Abhyudaya, Nishya, Siddhi, so Dharma. These are three facets of Dharma. Dharma is Dharaka, Dharma is Niyamaka, Dharma is Sadhaka. And we have to resort to Dharma. Dharma is a means, Dharma is not an end. It's only a means. It's a means for the realization of perfection. Perfection is the goal. But the means have instrumental value. Means is valuable, very much valuable, and indispensable in worldly existence. We are in worldly existence. We can't go by to the world. We have to live in the world. Of course, we have to live in the world, as Bhagavad Gita says, like a lotus leaf in a pond. The simile also is very suggestive, because pond may have mud and lotus may grow in a mud also, but then it is not affected either by the mud or muddy water or the water on the surface of the pond. So there has to be, Bhagavad Gita is a marvelous text to tell us as to how to lead the worldly life so that we may realize the perfection. This is the ultimate goal of our life. And Bhagavad Gita therefore says that you have to indulge in karma, but you have to indulge in karma skillfully. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. So the karma should be a karma yoga. In a karma yoga, there is pravritti, but also there is a nivritti. There is a discharge of our obligations, whether they be the obligations to one's own self, to the family, to the society, to the community, to the world and the cosmos at large. We have to discharge our worldly duties intelligently, wisely, but without being attached to the phala of the karma. This is the anasakta karma. It's not nishkam karma. Unfortunately, the term nishkam karma has gained currency in our tradition. Well, there is a kama. Kama is the very root of karma. Even Lord, so kama ekoham bhavsyamiti. Calm in the sense of motive. Lok Sangraha is a calm in the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, when I am avakta kama and yet I have a calm, and that is the form of Lok Sangraha. And yada nahi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata tata yatmanam sajjami puna puna. So this is the calm of the Lord. But this calm should not be mistaken for intentions. In English we have therefore these two words, motives and intention. Well, action should be well motivated, but should not be intended to seek this consequence or that consequence. This phalasakti is to be avoided. Taktva karma phalasangam idatatto nirashraya. This is what Lord Krishna says. So, in this worldly existence, we have to live. And there are three formulas of worldly existence which should be our guiding principles. There has to be sahavasa, saha-astitva. In this cosmos, it's a corporate existence, interdependent existence, interrelated existence. Everything is related to the other. That way, everything is basically the same. Sarvam khalvidam brahma. But modern physics also says the same thing. That whatever happens in one corner of the cosmos has its immediate impact on the. You are professor of electronics. I think he would be able to explain this in a much better way. This bootleg carrier butterfly effect. So there has to be corporate existence. I call it as Sangha Jivan. But Sangha is not a Sangha of the monks and nuns. When Lord Buddha said, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami, perhaps he didn't mean that. Though people understood it in that. Sangha means our entire existence is a corporate existence. The body also is a Sangha. Every organ of a body also is a Sangha. The family is a Sangha. The society is a Sangha. The cosmos is a Sangha. We are the pillar of the Brahmanda. We are an item in the total cosmic whole. So, there should be Sangha Jivana, a corporate existence. And if there is corporate existence, Sangha Jivana, then there has to be Sahakara, cooperative endeavor. So that my action helps others, others' action helps me. This sort of a cooperative existence, Sahakara, without any jealousy. So, in Guru Shishya Samvad we have Sahana Bhavatu, Sahano Bhunatu, Sahaviryam Karvavai, and without any Mahavidvisham, without any jealousy. So, if there is Sahavasa, there has to be Sahakara. And when there is Sahakara, there has to be Sahabhoga. Existing with mutual caring and sharing. This is Sahabhoga. In Ishavashopanishad, we are told, Tena Tyaktena Bhujita. In fact, the very concept of Yajna in Yajurveda, Ishavashopanishad is the concluding portion of the Yajurveda. Yajurveda karma is defined as Yajnam vai Shreshtatamo karma, which is Shreshtatam karma. And what is the Shrestata? That here we perform something and we say, Idam Indraya Swaha, Idam Namama. It is very important. Idam Namama. It is Indra stands for the totality in that particular context. Every Devata is a symbol of the totality. So when we perform Yajna, well, we say, this whole Gita, for Gita, the entire cosmos is a Yajna. Here you do action without any attachment, without any care for the consequences, but for the totality, Lokasangraha. So this is the genuine Yajna. Well, we have to perform as a Purushartha, the karma that we have to perform leading to earth and karma should be in the form of a Yajna. This should be a Brahma Yajna. In Bhagavad Gita, we have a very beautiful description of Brahma Yajna, Brahma Avi, and so forth. Gita is a wonderful manual, in fact. It's not, unfortunately, it is associated with the Hindu religion, but it's a text of universal well-being, cosmic well-being. So, we have to pursue our Purusharthas, earth and kama, regulated by dharma. So, in the Gita, therefore, dharma viruddho kamosmi, Lord Krishna says. Right? Because when you have a body, when you have a mind, there are requirements of the body and the mind. Those requirements are to be fulfilled. You have to eat, you have to drink, you have to sleep. But then, how to eat, what to eat, how to sleep, where to sleep, etc. And this requires a judicious discrimination. The role of dharma comes here. Which is, dharma is the guiding principle as to how we have to fulfill our karma. And to fulfill our karma, we require some means, which we call as artha. But then, how to acquire the artha in a dharmic way? The requirement is in an worldly life, where we have to cater to the needs of body and mind of the individual, of the society, of the nation, of the state, and the committee of nations. Well, what is required is that we must fulfill the genuine needs, cater to the genuine needs. And for catering to the genuine needs, there is sufficient in the cosmos. The Vedic Rishi says the cosmos is a Vasudha, which is Vasundhara. It has all the legitimate means to fulfill our needs. But as we usually say, well, our needs should not be turned into greed. Nature is there to help us. Body and mind are parts of nature according to Sankhya system. They are Prakriti. Body is Prakriti, mind also, both are material in the Sankhya system. And in Vedanta also, we have followed the Sankhya pattern. Of course, in Nyaya Visheshika, the account is slightly different. I don't want to go into the details. So, nature is there to help us. But we must enable nature to help us. Nature is very delicate. In the Sankhya system, Prakriti is compared to a delicate dancer. Nature is very delicate. Nature is compared to Sankhya system with a mother cow. Nature is there to help us. We, in our worldly existence, indulged with the psychophysical complex, have interaction with environment. And purity of environment, we have to keep in mind. So we may develop science and technology, we may heighten their innovations, but we have to keep in mind that science and technology are not meant to master nature. They are meant to modify nature to our advantage. A tiny human creature cannot master nature. Nature is too mighty to be mastered. We are ourselves a part of nature in our empirical existence. But we know, because we are self-conscious beings, we know that we are part of nature, and yet we have the capacity to go beyond nature, to go beyond the psychophysical complex, to decondition our existence and realize the pure self. We therefore must make a distinction between two levels of existence, the worldly existence and the trans-worldly existence. The worldly existence is an existence with the body and mind, and they are to be catered to. But we have also to go beyond the worldly and reach to the trans-worldly, which is our real existence. So, Paramarth and Vyavahara, this sort of distinction at the level of existence, we must keep in mind. Likewise, we have two types of experiences, because we are basically experiential beings. We undergo experiences, we reflect upon our experiences, and we reflect, we find that we may have experiences which are sense, mind generated. We call them as empirical experiences, but there can also be experiences beyond the ken of the senses and the mind and the body, that is the transcendental experience. So in the Mandukya Karika, therefore, we have the four stages of experience beautifully described: Jagrata, Swapna, Sushupta and Turiya. Two levels of existence, two levels of experience, and we have therefore two levels of value realizations. We must realize the worldly values of the empirical life. We call them as prayas. But we should not be just entangled in them. We have to go beyond them and reach to the Shreyas. So Shreyas also has to be there. Let me come back to human nature. Human nature is essentially a center of experience. But it is such a center of experience which constantly interacts with other centers of experience. And that's why I refer to the Sangha Jivan, the collective corporate existence. Therefore, at all the three levels of reality, experience and value realization, we have to keep both the centers in mind. An individual cannot realize perfection in isolation. Of course, there are moments when we would like to be unto ourselves, and we don't deny the value of such moments, but we have to interact with others. So, any meaningful talk of perfection should not be individual-centered. It should be initially society-centered and finally cosmic-centered. The Atma Bhava should be Sarvatma Bhava. We have to be one with the totality. Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. When this realization we shall have. We do talk about Aham Brahmasmi and Tattvamasi. This Aham Brahmasmi and Tattvamasi are without good metaphysical principles. And generally we take them only as metaphysical principles, study them in athletic metaphysics. But they are moral principles as well. Very significant moral principles. Tattvamasi means that you are the same as the ultimate reality. I and thou are not two different things. At bottom, we are one and the same. There is fundamental unity of the entire cosmos. There is fundamental unity of the entire human species. This is of course a corollary. Fundamental unity of the entire cosmos is the basic theme, and its corollary is that all human beings share the same nature. And if they share the same nature, then they must collaborate, they must cooperate for mutual enhancement. So the perfection, to my mind, therefore should be a social enterprise. It is, of course, society consists of individuals. So social enterprise is enterprise of each and every individual. Enterprise of each and every individual without constituting a hindrance, a strain to others' enterprise. This is what is known as Sahakar. In Sahakar there can't be conflicts. There has to be cooperation. So mutual supporting existence calls for mutual cooperation, and therefore in this enterprise of realization of perfection, there has to be collective endeavor. In this collective endeavor, it is also to be kept in mind that we are part and parcel of the cosmos. The cosmic process, it keeps on going. It doesn't halt. Perhaps it doesn't have any beginning, it may not have any end also. We don't know. But at the present juncture of the cosmic process, where we are stationed, we have to be aware of our station in the cosmic process, our nature in the cosmic process, our potentialities in the cosmic process, and how best we can contribute to the enhancement of the cosmic process. The perfection ultimately is the cosmic perfection, of which social perfection is a part, and of which again it percolates down, individual perfection is also a part. So perfection therefore, to my mind, is impartite. You can't have piecemeal realization of perfection. You can't have realization of perfection by an isolated individual. There has to be therefore a social transformation and a cosmic, you can say, movement holistic enhancement. Perfection, therefore, is an ideal to be realized. We are potentially, as I said earlier, also perfect. The cosmos is also a perfect. It's a Purna. And from that, whatever has come out is also a Purna. But then we, by mistake, under ignorance, take it to be Apurna. So we have to realize our finitude, our Apurnata. We have also to know how we can overcome our Apurnata and we can reach to the Purnata. It's a sort of a homecoming. We have to go back to the state which was our original state. If that is the case, then there is perfect tranquility. Tranquility, about 7 minutes more. About 7 minutes. Tranquility at the level of matter, tranquility at the level of spirit. The Sankhya system talks of two types of reals, the Prakriti and the Purusha. The tranquility of Prakriti is Samyavastha. In Ayurveda we call it Samadosha, Vata, Pitta and Kapha. So that sort of tranquility we have to realize. This is the tranquility of matter. Likewise, there has to be tranquility of consciousness, Chitta.